Welcome to Rewatch and Rank. On this channel, we rewatch older TV shows, provide a summary and opinion on the episode before ranking each episode against each other. Today's episode is Death Note, Part 1, Episode 2, Confrontation. The episode, in a nutshell, is a brief summary and a line or two about exactly what happens within this episode. Light is overconfident in his routine and gets provoked into falling for L's trap, revealing his location and hinting at his method of killing. Now we're going to go into a more detailed summary of the episode, scene by scene, part by part. This episode opens on Light sitting in class diligently taking notes when he's called on by the teacher to make a translation. He does so flawlessly, and the teacher compliments him on his perfect answer, while Ryuk is lurking around and trying to speak to him, but he is being ignored by Light. As they are leaving class, Light quietly under his breath reminds Ryuk that unlike Ryuk, Light can still be seen and heard by those around him, and it would look like he was talking to himself if he was to speak to Ryuk. As he's walking, another student comes over and tries to invite him to hang out, but Light declines, saying that he has something else that he needs to do. Ryuk tells him he doesn't have anything to do, he's just going to do what he always does. But Light confirms that yes, that is what he needs to do, and it is something very important. This is just a daily life little snippet scene reinforcing Light's genius with his perfect answer and implying just how much the Death Note has now taken over his daily life. Once he's at home, Light sits at his desk diligently writing names in the Death Note, all while listening to the news reporting more death, more crimes. Behind him, Ryuk snacks on apples, lazing around on his bed, commenting on how hard Light's always working. Light explains to him that he has to work hard, as he has only a limited amount of hours in each day. He needs to keep up with his homework and his prep work. He has to maintain good sleeping habits so that he maintains optimal health. And on top of all of that, he also has to write the names of criminals in order to create his utopia. There's simply never enough time. And of course, he gets interrupted by a knock on the door from Sayu, who's trying to open it, but it is locked, so she can't just walk in. She yells through the door, asking for help with her homework. So he puts the Death Note away into his drawer and lets her in. Once she's there, Ryuk decides that's the perfect time to inform Light that anyone who touches the note will be able to see and hear him as well. Light is internally pissed, but he can't show it because Sayu is there, so he acts nice for Sayu, asking what she doesn't understand about her homework. Her answer? Well, I think all of it. Hmm. I like how Ryuk waits until Light can't respond to drop a bombshell like that. Luckily, Light was already treating the note as a secret and hiding it in his drawer. But could you imagine what would have happened if Sayu actually had come in and he hadn't bothered to hide it because he didn't know about this information ahead of time and she saw Ryuk? Given Sayu's personality, I don't think it would have ended well. So it's a good thing that he put it in the drawer. All right, so this is the first scene that we are meeting people other than Light. We are going out of the bubble, and he's no longer the main character for this scene. So we enter into an ICPO, which I don't know what that stands for, meeting to discuss Kira's victims that are known to date. Matsuda greets Soichiro, who is coming in late due to having had a call from headquarters. Some of the representatives think that since the criminals were slated to die anyway, they really shouldn't be concerning themselves with this whole case, while others take the stance that, criminal or not, killing is killing. The first speaker states they aren't even sure they were murdered, while the second suggests there's no way over 100 people have heart attacks at the same time. The first then asks if it's even possible to kill 100 people at the same time, while a third steps in, claiming it could be a large organization coordinating the killings. A valid suggestion. A fourth one steps in, well, if it is a large organization, then most likely it would be the FBI or CIA. And this causes an uproar amongst all of the representatives, who then start arguing. After more arguing, a rep then suggests involving L, oh, we love L, to solve the case, which leads to the representatives privately talking amongst themselves. Matsuda asks Soichiro what an L is. Soichiro then explains to him that L is a detective who's kept his identity anonymous, but has solved every single case he's taken on, no matter how difficult. And he's taken on cases all around the world and is considered to be their secret weapon and their last hope trump card against criminals that are too smart for them, essentially. A representative points out that L only takes on cases he finds interesting, and they're unable to contact him proactively. But just as he says that, Watari walks in, stating that L is already involved and investigating the case. Suichiro explains that Watari is the only way to contact L to a very confused-looking Matsuda. Watari tells the reps to be quiet as L will speak, before he opens up a laptop with a large L appearing on the main screen, and using a voice changer, L addresses the ICPO members. In this scene, I really feel like Matsuda is pretty much used as a plot device to relay information on who L is to the audience. And I know we're not really talking about fan fiction here, but I have read a lot of it. And in fan fiction, I found that Matsuda almost always is portrayed as naive and a little bit slow. And I think it's things like this, using him as a plot device to relay information that he clearly has no clue about and making him look really kind of dopey and confused, that gives that impression that ends up bleeding over into the fan fiction. And also, I have to shout out Watari's outfit in this case. He is literally in like a full bodysuit covering his face as well, with like a little hat and a trench coat, carrying a briefcase with this mysterious laptop that doesn't even need wires or seemingly to go through any sort of installation process to project itself onto the main slide screen. So I want to shout out his outfit. It's hilarious. And again, why I think this is a comedy series. All right, so we come back to our main character, Light, who's sitting in what looks like an abandoned bathroom in an abandoned building. Could be a school or community center or a residential building. It's not really clear from what they show on screen, just that it is crumbling, covered in vines. Ryuk asks Light what he's doing in such a desolate place, and Light, who is surrounded by a bunch of bottles filled with goodness only knows what, that he is working on a way to make sure that no one touches the Deathnote, as he can't walk around with something that's so dangerous now that he knows that anybody who touches it, or even a piece of it, brushes against it, will be able to see and hear Ryuk. Originally, his plan was that if it was ever discovered, he was just going to say that the names were a record of cases that he was keeping so that he could study for being a detective one day, which is his childhood dream, to be a detective like his father. But now that he knows that they will be seeing Ryuk if they touch it, he's walking a fine line, saying that if he's not careful, he may end up having to kill his own family. He pours liquid in a box, and then it suddenly sets on fire. I like the way, and this is a joke, that's sarcasm, because I don't actually like it, that he's prioritizing his killing of criminals over his own family. If my family finds out, I would have to kill them. So he doesn't want to kill them, therefore, rather than not being a criminal, not writing names, not using the Death Note, he instead has to work on hiding the Death Note under the understanding he would choose the Death Note over his family. So that tells you where Light's morals are at this point, and they are very downhill from where they seemingly started at the beginning. We now return to our ICPO meeting, where Elle is explaining the difficulty and the scope of the Kira case, describing it as an unforgivable case of serial murder, and asking for the full cooperation from the ICPO, as well as various other world organizations. He asks them to decide at this conference if they will be willing to support him, adding that he strongly desires working with the Japanese police specifically. Suichiro stands, asking why Japan, and Elle reveals that he strongly suspects that the killer is Japanese, or if he is not Japanese, hiding somewhere in Japan. Suichiro asks him for his grounds to make such claims, and L says that he's going to prove it very soon through a direct confrontation, before stating that he wants his headquarters to be in Japan for this case. I don't have really many comments on this scene. Basically, it's just a setup for L coming to Japan and working with the Japanese police. Other than that, not really much to say about it. Back at home, Light proudly closes his drawer, claiming that it was easier to hide the note than he thought. Ryuk asks him what he's done to hide the note, to explain what it is that he's so proud of, and Light shows him that he's left the key in the lock, which, when opened, will show just a regular diary, which he hopes will satisfy most people's curiosity. But on the off chance that they realize there's a false bottom and the diary doesn't satisfy their curiosity, he then shows Ryuk that if you take a pen apart and use the ink cartridge to lift the false bottom, the notebook will be there. But if you don't use a pen to disrupt the circuit, then the drawer will catch on fire, burning the notebook and therefore burning the evidence as well. Ryuk points out that if it explodes, that could be very dangerous, and people will ask questions about why this drawer exploded. And Light says that he's prepared an excuse, and that is simply that he didn't want anyone reading his diary. And of course, it's perfectly reasonable to set a trap to set your diary on fire just so people don't read it. Obviously. Rook then tells him, in a complimentary way, that the biggest problem others who've had death notes in the past had was finding a place to hide it. But that Light has gone the farthest of anyone else to hide it and make sure others can't find it. But he does again warn how dangerous it is that he's basically set a bomb in his house. Light reminds him that he's been in danger from the start. And in fact, this trap protects him, asking him which is better, a small house fire or being executed. The answer to that question is a small house fire is better than being executed. We now get to take a brief break into looking at the outside world's reactions to what's been going on. On the streets, the news broadcasts more heart attack deaths while people whisper to each other about who could be doing it. And soon, the name Kira starts going around these whispers. Back in his room, Light shows Ryuk one of the many sites dedicated to him, with massive numbers of followers. He says that while the news reports various murders, the people already feel a change, that someone is passing judgment, pointing out that while people may be silent or disavow him publicly in the safety of anonymity, online, he is being praised and worshipped. He says those with clean conscience are cheering for Kira in their hearts. And then it does show that a girl playing on her phone is telling Kira to kill everybody. And those who are doing wrong fear judgment. And then we do in fact see that a man is huddled in a darkened alley, looking very afraid. And then he says that everything is going absolutely perfectly according to his plan. He does also mention, though, that he doesn't really like the name Kira, but he's going to go with it because that's what's been given to him, and also explains that it originates from the English word for killer. On TV, a news broadcast is interrupted to bring a special worldwide broadcast from the ICPO. Both Light and Ryuk are watching from his room, as Lindell Taylor says he's the only one who can mobilize the world's police and is known to the world as L. Matsuda, Surichiro, and the other detectives also watch the broadcast, but Matsuda asks why L is showing his face. And Surichiro says it's because he's serious, while thinking that they've done as they were told, and it's time for L to prove what he said at the conference, that he is going to prove that Kira is in Japan. Taylor goes on to provoke Light by calling him an atrocious murderer and claiming he will catch him, and his crimes won't go unpunished. leading to Light ego tripping all over the place and telling the TV that the Death Note is a superior killing instrument and leaves no evidence. He tells the TV there's no way he can catch him. Taylor goes on that he has a good idea of his motive, but calls him evil, which Light visibly dislikes, before he starts yelling again at the TV that he is justice and he is saving the weak from evil, and the man who will become a god of the new world, claiming those who oppose him are the evil ones. He tells the TV that this could have been interesting if only Elle was a bit smarter, and writes down Taylor's name, causing a heart attack to occur on the TV. But before he can be a little bit too pleased with himself, the letter L appears. And L, through his microphone, murmurs in disbelief that Kira can kill without contact, before revealing that the broadcast lied, and Taylor was in fact a criminal slated for execution, arrested secretly by the police. He was not L himself. Then he challenges Kira to kill him, which unfortunately Light can't do. The broadcast then goes on to reveal that there are limitations to Kira's power, and then gives information in turn that the broadcast was only in a limited area, proving the location of Kira and how he narrowed the country down based on the hostage murder, which was only broadcast in Japan and is believed to be the first murder. He then says that Kira is lucky due to his region being the most populated, before he reveals he didn't think things would go so well, but stating it won't be long until he can sentence him to death. Matsuda comments L lives up to his reputation, and Soichiro confirms he proved that Kira does exist, the killings took place, and that Kira is in Japan. L then says that he's curious about his method, but will figure it out when he catches him, signing off, "Until we meet again." Contrary to being unhappy, Light accepts L's challenge instead. Ryuk recaps that they are hunting each other without names or faces, and the first one to find the other wins. They then, in unison, both claim, and by they I do mean Light and L, in unison both claim that they are justice. Now with this scene, one thing that stands out to me is that it seems the police were kind of kept in the dark about a criminal being in L's place, because Matsuda and Suichiro both comment that they think that that is L showing his face because he's serious. And obviously it was not him, so he is still anonymous. We've been seeing the slippery slope. We have been. From episode 1, where he was thinking bullies and just general dislikable people were okay to kill, to now he's willing to kill an innocent person. Because L is on the side of justice, someone he should be on the side of, but he's willing to kill him to keep being able to kill other people. So it's the first moral slip up, where Light decides to forgo criminals and kill people who are more innocent. That being said, L doesn't know how Light kills, okay? So for all he knows, Light has some supernatural radar that tells him who is a criminal and who isn't. For all he knows, Light killed Lindell Taylor because he knew he was a criminal through some supernatural means, as his method is supernatural. And he didn't kill L not because he couldn't, but because he knew that L was a detective. Like, he has no way to know that that wasn't the case, because he does not know how Light kills. So the assumption automatically that Light needs names and faces or things like that, I don't know why that assumption was made. We've already proven supernatural exists. The supernatural exists. He has killed him with a heart attack, with no previous contact, just the name and face being there. But again, we don't know. Maybe he has a sixth sense and he killed him not thinking he was L, but knowing he was a criminal. And then he doesn't kill L because he knows that he's not a criminal. There's no way that L would know that that wasn't the case. But his assumption that it isn't just kind of, to me, proves there are a lot, like, you'll see as this series goes on, there are some assumptions that the characters make because the writers knew who was who, that maybe other people wouldn't have made in the same situation. And also, when he shows up, he's kind of just like sitting there musing his inner thoughts out to the public through like a voice changer microphone. And maybe you should like think about that yourself and just make your declaration of this wasn't me and like be more professional about it because like it's kind of funny. I was sitting there kind of cringing, going like, you're literally here musing your inner thoughts, the I'm shocked out into the public. But that was a creative choice they made, and I accept it. All right, so that was the last scene of this episode and where they decided to end the episode. So we are now moving on to the part of rewatch and rank, where we have now rewatched the episode, and so now we are going to be ranking the episode. I rank on two lists, a mostly objective list, mostly objective because it's objective in that it is a chart, but and so my emotions don't really impact the score. It's scored based on the chart, but I made the chart. I choose what on the chart applies, so my bias and judgment are inherently there, therefore it cannot be considered fully objective. So our mostly objective list, and then the second list is the personal ranking, which is purely my emotions and my feelings about the episode, how much I enjoyed it, and whether I thought it was great or not. All right, so now we're on the slide for the mostly objective rank values, and you can see on your screen the chart that was made, and I've highlighted that which applies. So basically, what gives this episode pretty much all of its points are the character introductions. So we meet a single arc main character in L, a single arc supporting character in Watari, and then we meet multi-arc supporting characters in Soichiro, Matsuda, and Sayu. For each of the multi-arc supporting characters, they're each worth 2 points. Watari is worth 1, and L is worth 3, which brings us up to a perfect 10. I didn't see anything that was really negative about this episode, so there aren't really any minuses. So this episode gets a 10 out of 10. So with our mostly objective ranking being a 10 out of 10, and the previous episode, Rebirth, was also a 10 out of 10, we're just going to put it in debut order. So our list is in first place Rebirth and second place so far Confrontation. For my personal ranking, it also follows the same order, Rebirth and Confrontation. For my personal ranking, I gave it a 7 out of 10. Obviously, L is my favorite character personally, so his introduction is a big positive. I was very happy that he was there, though we don't quite get to see him yet. So that was a bit disappointing, of course. And obviously, the Light's clever trap for the note was very impressive, especially to me as a child when I was first rewatching, like watching this for the first time, not rewatching it. I was like, wow, mind blown. Never would have thought of that. However, the ICPO meetings were not very entertaining. They were kind of dry, kind of boring. And obviously, Light's lack of emotional control and his moral slipping is kind of annoying because it's like you're making, like, a lot of times with serial killers being main characters, there has to be something about them that you really like. In the case of Death Note, I feel like the thing that you were supposed to like about L was that, or not L, sorry, Light, was that he was killing the criminals. He was a moral killer in a sense. But he's losing that, obviously. I mean, Lindell Taylor was still a criminal, so he hasn't quite slipped completely yet, but he didn't know that, and we know he didn't know that. So that's a bit of a negative for me, but at the same time, it leads to amusement, so I still get good vibes from it. So I didn't want to mark it too low, but it's not the best episode. There are some that are better. He did make some mistakes, so I figured a 7 out of 10 was fair. All right, so now in the series ranking, we rank each part of or section, arc, season of a series against each other. We won't know the final scores until we finish the series, but for now, we'll add today's scores to the total for part 1. So in part 1, there are 26 episodes, leading to a maximum possible score of 260. With the mostly objective score of 10 for this episode. We now have 20 out of 260. And for the personal ranking, we've added 7 for a total of 16 out of 260. Once we finish the series, we will know the percentage score for each part, and the higher percentage will win. And with that, we rewatched and ranked Death Note Part 1, Episode 2, Confrontation. Like and subscribe if you'd like to, and I'll see you in the next episode.